And it appears we are live. What's up, everybody? This is Mr. Drew here to welcome you to another episode of the Glowczewski Experience. This is going to be episode 196. And going to continue the character concepts, everything that you see me going on here. We're just going to do another row of them here. Let me lower the camera, get ready for all this. As my sketchbook slides down. Either way, yeah, so we're going to be working on that, and I have, again, just to introduce myself, is Mr. Drew, and it's at Mr. Drew on all social media. Today's date is July 11th, so if you are catching this on YouTube, these are backlogged episodes, and you can catch me live on Twitch, or even earlier on Twitch. And then if you don't want to have a Twitch account, you can also check me out on Patreon. These videos usually go right up onto my Patreon right afterwards. And, you know, depending on what the contents of the video, you know, you may need to be a patron in order to view it. Maybe not. Sometimes I just do regular art stuff, and, you know, those are available to the public. Either way, yeah, you may be interested in joining my Patreon if you are into getting like character portraits or character commissions or anything like that. If you like to go to conventions and have artists draw certain characters, or maybe you have your own characters you want to see rendered out in certain styles or whatever. You know, that's everything like that is up my alley. I work both traditionally and digitally, so yeah, there's plenty I have to offer. And other than that, yeah, Mr. Drew, everywhere else like Instagram, Twitter, you can follow, like, and subscribe. Any and all support is appreciated. But other than that, man, let's just get started. So basically, what I'm doing with all of these is I'm taking this character here, and I have a bunch of portraits for him, and I'm kind of going through them one by one, and then just playing with ideas and of what I want to do. So far it's like I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and I believe that's 1, 2, and then 3 would be these 3, and then 4 would be the last 3. And oh wow, I missed it already. Already getting spammers. How fun. Other than that, well, yeah, so I'm going in and portrait by portrait, just kind of drawing whatever ideas I can get from them and trying to lay them out. Like, for instance, I have this one, which always makes me think of a biker type of scenario. So maybe some biker stuff there. Um, and then, yeah, just this big jacket, which was actually one of my least favorite pieces I put together from the digital uh, image collage that I make, or the photo bashing that I made, to this one, which is definitely an improvement to it, but still doesn't give the full look that I was looking for or wanting to give. Um, so yeah, I'll probably play with this one a whole lot because there was a lot of ideas into it, just not so much within the execution of it. So yeah, I'm kind of glad. So we'll see. It'll probably be just working on this one on this stream, or maybe both of these. We'll see how fast I kind of get done with the biker look. And I keep saying biker, but he's he's not necessarily a biker look. It's just what I think of it. But yeah, man, let's jump in. I got David Finch playing in the background. He's just doing what is this called? It's just David Finch doing an artist study of Kevin Nolan. I'm unfamiliar with Kevin Nolan's work, so he's just going to be kind of drawing and talking about that sort of stuff. And yeah, man, that's what's going to be playing in the background while I work. And who knows? Maybe I could talk about some stuff. Like for instance, today I watched where are we at? We're at 22 minutes. So I could turn the volume down, let that play in the background, and then I'll just rewind. I watched Resident Evil. What's it called? Infinite Darkness on Netflix today. Gotta say, man, it has its ups and its downs. Like on the upside, fucking Leon. On the downside, the story was like, meh. It was really small. It was a really small story, and Claire was a big part of the promotion of it, of course, because one, it's Claire, and she's always there with Leon for whatever reason. Like they always just happen to bump into each other, no matter how far apart they are in their worlds, and yeah, it really is the Leon show, and not so much Claire. So hopefully, if this is a series that they want to kind of continue, because I guess it wasn't a movie like I thought it was. When I started watching it and it ended after a half hour, I was like, wait, what? This is a TV show? And and yeah, man, it just threw me off that that they did a TV show, or did an episodic thing a rather than a movie. I was like, wait, what? No way. It's super weird. Because it was only 4 episodes, so it was 2 hours, so it definitely could have been just like a straight 2 hour movie. I wonder what that's about, like if it has anything to do with like the digital currency of of clicks. Because everything is all about clicks these days. Um, so maybe there's just more clicking going on when you have like multiple episodes to get to, rather than just like hit a movie, let it play. Maybe they didn't have faith in a maybe they just didn't have faith in a movie. Like maybe they thought like the movie would people would like kind of stop the movie halfway through, and maybe pick it up later, or just stop watching altogether. Where making it episodic, maybe they thought like they'll get um not just more interaction, but just more evidence of people viewing and watching it. So who knows? I mean, unless Capcom, I guess, is going to reveal anything about it, I doubt it. But yeah, man, I really there like I said, man, it had its ups and downs. It had like its high points and its low points in that show. I mean, starting from the beginning, it's like, you're super excited because we've been waiting for this for so long, right? And then they're watching. They recently released a like the opening scene and everything like that. And so we're not seeing anything new as far as like the opening scene goes. And then what happened? They hold on. I feel a sneeze coming on. Woo! Damn. I feel like that one was lingering forever. Holy shit. Excuse me. Powerful sneeze. Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to be getting into spoilers or anything like that. It's hard for me to think and draw at the same time. Anybody who watches me, you know that. Yeah, pocket is way, way to the front. There we go. There we go. Okay. But yeah, I watched a few things about it, and what was it called? Let's Talk Resident Evil. There's a channel on uh on YouTube. I've talked about them in the past. They did. I don't want to say like, oh, they did a really good breakdown of the movie, but they did do a good talk about it. You know what I mean? Like they talked about it and I really like what they talked about because they really highlighted some good things. There was a moment in episode 3. It's 4 episodes, so now episode 3, we're 3 quarters into the story, and there's this really powerful scene after they get out of a submarine and they're in a hotel room, and I mean, I want more of that. It's amazing how much you could just achieve with just dialogue and tension and these two characters interacting. So Leon's interacting with, an original character from the movie. And, they're talking and it's so tense and intense. And man, I just couldn't. Like I was sitting there watching, like, holy shit. I was like, Leon, look, why he's so cool right now. He's so cool right here. And and when I was listening to the Let's Talk Resident Evil guys, they were like, they called him Big Dick Leon. Like it was probably the most boss we've ever seen Leon in that one scene. And like I said, there's like tension in there, very reminiscent of like Training Day or something like that. If you've seen Training Day, of the end of that movie where he's at the Mexican gangsters, like there's a whole lot of tension in that scene. It was very reminiscent of that, at least to me it was. There we go. Oh yeah, this isn't that bad. I was wondering what I was gonna be doing. But yeah, man, I mean, that scene alone, I was like, yo, if Resident Evil like goes that route with all of their characters, putting them in those sort of situations, it's like I don't care what story they do, what story they tell. Most of the time, anytime I think of a Resident Evil movie, I think of like the Mila Jovovich stuff, which I'm a huge fan of her, but I am not a big fan of those movies. Not even for the fun of it, you know what I mean? Like I'm not really big on the, oh, I'll watch a bad movie for the fun of it kind of guy. Well, at least not when it comes to Resident Evil. That whole movie series. Like, like I think cinematically horror hasn't really had too much shine, especially in recent years. And like I watched Midsummer, which was probably the one of the latest horror movies that I've seen, which was pretty good. And then I heard about Parasite, the movie, which I was like, okay, that's cool. And it's like Yeah, definitely. If people are working on horror, it's been more in like I guess maybe the Korean market that's been making really good horror movies, kind of like Parasite and things like that, where it's kind of a little bit more obscure, less hack and slash, and more uh, whatever. Either way, like that scene of him of them talking, man, it was just really good, and that alone is worth it. But that's in episode 3, I would say. In order to get the build up to it, uh, you got to watch episodes 1 and 2, and you might as well watch the fourth one. You know, getting close to the end of the story, just watch how it all wraps up, right? And then, oh shit, that's what I should probably be doing. Um, Shit, where is that? Forgive me while I try to pull up some referencing stuff. There we go. There we go. But yeah, there was yeah, but outside of that, I really didn't see too much. Like I said, man, I'm more of a Claire fan than I am a Leon fan. That's not saying that I don't like Leon, you know. I'm just more of a Claire fan. I think where she stands besides all of the other characters in the series is just a little bit more unique, if you ask me. You know, in Resident Evil 1, we get Jill and Chris, and they're stars members. You know, Wesker and Barry, they're stars members. They're a part of this. Um, they're a part of this elite unit. You know what I mean? One that's elite enough to have a nemesis made in order to bring them down, to silence them, or just to diminish any possibility that Umbrella may get exposed for what Stars knows. And like, okay, so you have these elite people. That's Chris and Jill. That's when we're introduced to them. That's when they have all that stuff going on. So we expect those characters to kind of be able to handle their own. Like, yeah, no one's prepared for a zombie apocalypse. Um, yeah, that's going a little out there. There we go. More like that. And so, so that's the first game. In the second game, we get Leon and Claire. And Claire's just introduced to us as like, oh, this is Chris's sister. She's just looking for Chris. Which also just means like, okay, so she's a pedestrian. Like, certainly because she's Chris's sister, like story wise, um, it's like, okay, but she could also handle herself because she's Chris's sister. You know. But it's never like, oh, she even though she's not a member of STARS, she's an FBI operative or anything like that. It's like, no, she's just like a person who just happens to be related to a character who isn't just a person, who's more of a military person. So because of that connection, the creators can just go ahead and say like, well, yeah, since she has military connections, she has military abilities to be able to handle themselves. But we all know like that's just what they're saying. Like, anybody who's related to a military person knows that not everybody in the family is a goddamn Green Beret. You know what I'm saying? So, for her to be able to handle her own, that's a thing, a character trait for her. You know what I mean? And even though it's just convenient for her to be that way rather than like some helpless damsel in distress, and the whole video game is, or game 2 is just all about um Leon helping her through it, like she's the president's daughter in game 4 or something like that. Like, no, she's handling things on her own. She's, killing zombies on her own. And she's just a pedestrian. She happens to be related to somebody in the military, but that, like we know that that doesn't give you superpowers. That just means that you're related to somebody. Big whoop. You know what I mean? Um, so it's because of that reason that Claire always stood out to me. She got her own game in Code Veronica. I remember my brothers playing that when I was a kid, and just being like, oh, that like that's cool. Like I think I even remember seeing Code Veronica before I ever seen uh, Resi 2. Like that's how little of a Resident Evil fan I am, or like, you know what I mean, like how deep into the lore I am. Like I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and be like I was all about that shit and in forever and whatever. It was more like I've said it on this stream before. I'm pussy. I was too young and too afraid to play those games. They were a little slow. The controls were a little wonky. I was like, get me Mega Man. Get me Mega Man X. Get me Street Fighter. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't necessarily want or need to play um this horror game. which is hard. It's even hard for my older siblings to play. So it was like, okay, I get it. But I still remember them playing it, and I still thought that those games were cool. They just weren't for me. There we go. So yeah, I mean, as far as the movie goes, like Claire definitely didn't have any real like too much impact on it. She was just there. Like she could have been anybody. She didn't need to be Claire Redfield in order to portray or to fulfill that role. You know what I mean? To fulfill the character that she was being. Um, no Ada. I'm surprised. No even reference to Ada or anything like that. I was waiting for it for a lot of the time, especially considering the story and everything like that. But nope, not up in here. And then it began, it ended. It was a really small story, and things like that. And like I said, I mean there's like little nuggets of gold in there. Uh, Pretty much every. It seems to be the way everything goes these days. Is everything's like a little hit and a little miss, and and yeah, I mean that just seems to be the way it is. So let's get a couple more in here. How long have we been going? Half hour. That's not bad. So what else do? What else was happening? Um, see. Here, here. Yeah, and then what happens? In game three, we're back to Jill. I love Jill. You know what I mean? I love all these characters. Um, and then, and again, she's handy. We're able to get her in pedestrian mode and see that she's still able to handle herself because of her stars, training and background and stuff like that. So again, like there's no no big deal there. And all I'm saying is that that's why Claire always stood out to me in the game series, just because I was like, oh, she's just like a regular girl looking for her brother. Who cares that she can fight? She can fight because she wanted to. You know what I mean? Not because she had to. Which again, I think puts her in a different class than all the other ones. And then what all the Revelation games you get Barry. Barry's daughter, she's another one that's interesting. You know, she's just like Claire to me, where it's like, you know, and I think Claire, that was another game that Claire was in. Oh yeah, how am I doing this? But yeah, so she doesn't get too much of a or whatever. And again, that probably contributes to me saying like it wasn't all that, because it was like, God damn, she was in the trailer. Like, why even put her in the trailer? You know what I mean? Like, why was she even in the movie at all? I mean, whatever. that's what I'm missing there. This all feels a bit stiff to me, and I'm really not bagging up everything like how I like to. Whatever. There we go. And then, what? 4, we're back to Leon. Leon killing shit. And apparently this movie takes place sometime after 4, like in between 5 and 6 or something like that maybe, or between 4 and 6. I have no idea. Like maybe this is what Leon was doing while Chris was in Africa or something like that. But again, no, I always feel like if you're gonna have Claire there, you got to bring up Chris. Like, is she looking for him? Is she not looking for him? Like, she found out he was in Europe. Shouldn't she have gone to Europe to go find him or something? So why is she over, like in some Asian country, trying to do some humanitarian effort stuff? Like, again, like like I said, ups and downs. There was things that I loved and things that I didn't, and yeah, because at the end of the day, the thing that when it comes to Claire, or at least whenever I think about her, is like, when is she gonna find Chris? Like, when does she find Chris, and when does she like find peace with finding him, and like, what does that look like when she does find him? What do they talk about? What is she trying to find him for? Like, you know what I mean? Does she have like something that she needs to tell him? Like, maybe they cover that in the games, like in the games that I haven't played or something like that, but. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like that's part of like her. That's her whole shtick. Is I feel like she should always be chasing Chris. She should always be trying to be like, where's my brother? Like, um, you know what I mean? And no matter what she's doing, she should be trying to find him. You know. Oh, I'd love to, but my brother's over here. And there just doesn't seem to be any concern on her end to you know Leon doesn't like, hey, did you ever talk to your brother? What's his name again? What's his name that I'm gonna run into in the future, and he's gonna be trying to kill Ada while I'm trying to chase her because I thought she was dead, but she's not. That hasn't happened yet, but that's what that's when I'm gonna finally meet him. He's like, You know what I mean? Like the craziness of the Resident Evil world. There's already so much to it. There's no need to add too much more. And this movie just seems to be some filler where they're just adding to it. And it really wouldn't have meant much to me had we not gotten like really good scenes. Um, and like I said, a lot of this is just about Leon. I would watch it just for Leon. If you've ever liked Resident Evil at all, even if you've never played any of the games or really paid attention to Leon or anything like that, like it's totally worth it just to see what a badass he is. Because any of the other movies, they display his badassery in some weird way where he's like, riding motorcycles, or, jumping motorcycles, like uh like he's fucking Roach from Final Fantasy VII or some shit, but or taking out a hallway of zombies or some shit. But either way, there's some cheese in a movie. There should always be a little bit of cheese. Oh, there we go. There's an idea. But yeah, I think that's the latest with everything that I've had going on. I know. I'm so enthralling when I'm trying to draw, and having half thoughts and everything like that. This killer art cast. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because that's something that I watched today, so it's kind of on my mind. Something I can at least say like, hey, I did this. This is what I was up to. Why I wasn't streaming earlier. Um, go. go. So, yeah, let me rewind this David Finch stuff. What's that, 40 minutes of me jabbering?
And so I know he had his nose like this. Now, I had the advantage of having drawn noses just like this for years because he's such an influence. So this is probably, some of these things are going to be easier for me. What's going to be difficult for me is really trying to actually get the overall look that he had with his face, which I didn't manage to achieve the first time. Let's see how this one goes. And lower lip here, I think I was a little bit wide with it, so I wanted to bring that up just a bit. Right here. And I feel like my chin's projected out a little too much. It's really looking wrong. So even though I'm kind of trying to pick up on what he had, I don't think I was getting it, and I'm just going to go ahead and fix it. I think that looks a little better. And trying to get that chin the way he had it just had me drawing something a little strange that I don't think was in his art.
It's so funny. He's doing an artist study, and he's so fixated on getting it the way that they did it. I guess it kind of makes sense.
And already my line is a little more confident with this one because I'm drawing this myself. So I'm not methodically looking at how somebody else did it. This is already kind of becoming my own. And so that shape that he had
That's exactly what I was trying
his
to
Adam's
say.
apple, that kind of thing, um,
Anytime I do an artist
that's
study,
kind
I
of become
kind of
my
just
own
draw.
the way
If
that
I
I'm doing
draw
that.
what they
So
did,
okay, I'm gonna go ahead and draw in my shadow. I came
I
up
still just
too
draw it my
this
way
way the
and then
first
just
time, so I'm gonna correct
try to
that.
get into their thinking
Lock this in.
rather than their style. I try to get into their thinking so I know if I don't execute it
There,
right
you
and
want
I
me to
don't
look
like
at
the
it
way
this
it
time?
looks, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I did it
Okay.
wrong. And then I may redo
See
it.
how it's coming. I'm gonna skip over. Put Eric on the spot. Awesome, good. I think he's a little wide between his ear and his eye, though. Yeah, for sure. We'll fix that. But yeah, it's coming along. And I mean, you're moving a lot quicker than me this time. Okay. Now I'm gonna block in my shadow under this eye. Under my nose. I'm feeling the pressure now. I'm speeding up, but I saw how fast you're going. I'm gonna cast my shadow under the nose. It stopped just above the lip here, I noticed. Just kind of like that. So I want to try and make sure not to lose that. The great thing about doing these kinds of studies is that it is faster and easier than you would ever think. Um, this one study, done properly, you'll be a slightly different artist coming out of it, maybe even more than slightly. And if you spend, an hour a day, 2 hours a day for a week, you'll come out of it in a very different place than you went in. It really doesn't take much, and it's such a streamlined way to practice rather than every single time you just start from nothing and you're trying to fight with your own drawing. I mean, and you're going to do that anyway. I mean, that's a reality. But you can decide the style that you want to have. Do you want to draw like Gary Frank? And I'm listening to all my favorite artists. Obviously, you have your own. If it's the artist from Berserk, um, you can do that very same thing with his art. And fortunately, he passed away not long ago. But were he here, I'm sure he would not begrudge you at all. This is just how we all do it. And so I had a shadow under here. I dropped that in. Under here, I that kind of shadowed and it came up into here. So kind of remember that. I had a pretty good long shadow under here, if I remember. So it was just about like that. And then there's a shadow from my the side of the mouth. Does that have a name? I don't know. I think this was actually fully dark here. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know what that muscle's called, but when you shake that in, it adds so much realism to the upper lip.
Yeah, it's a real plane change.
Yeah.
And that's really what's important. It's the changes of planes and remembering what those are. And I think names can be very helpful for that. So I wouldn't want to say, oh, don't bother learning the names. They're not useful. They are. I can't, and you know this, Eric, and I'm sure for those of you that watch a lot of these streams, I can't remember names. I'm the worst with it. Like people's names, my own family's names sometimes. And so for me to try to learn these names, it would be kind of impressive. But I think if that's something that you don't struggle with, then absolutely it's an advantage to have. All right, and I have a bit of a shadow here, cast shadow over his shoulder. I'm just gonna go really loose with that, just get it in there. And then now this is me totally cheating because
Baggier clothes got him looking mad fat.
I do this again based on Kevin Olden, so yeah, very easy for me to just quickly block in some lines here. He had a really nice curvature to that line that just naturally flowed out of his hand here. And I want to say, in my defense, he's probably a righty. It's easier for me to flow a line like that than I would have to turn the page. So
Another super chat from K-Beck. How can you mix manga and comic art styles together?
you know what? That is such a good question. Um, I think that Joe Mad is a really good example of that. And this was dark here. Let me darken that in. Joe Mad was a really good example of doing that. There are so many things that manga does really well, and then there are things manga tends to not be as anatomical with muscle definition. So if you like anatomical muscle definition, you can draw, your more manga influenced proportions, and then draw more realistic lighting and musculature like American comics, if that's what you choose. Or vice versa. So it's taking the things that you really like. Now, the thing that I really liked about, and still do, about Master Mushiro is his tech is absolutely incredible, and the way he draws his women was really amazing. And so just getting a lot of those lines and a lot of the poses was really helpful. So yeah, that's basically my attempt. I'm gonna flip it over and see how close I got. Pretty close. I think I lost a couple of things. And let's see here. Let's get my original reference. And so this is what upside down. Hold on. So Eric, you finished with yours?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll switch back to you in a second. See if it came out.
Sure.
So this is my original, and this is my drawing of it, kind of on my own. And so yeah, I drew this myself. So this is my art. There you go. And that's how easy it is. Now, the more you do this, the easier it will be. And obviously, I've been drawing for years and years, so it's fairly easy in comparison to if I was just doing this starting out. But you know what? The process is exactly the same, and what you get out of it is really exactly the same. So let's switch over to Eric and see how Eric's coming along. Yeah, it's looking good. I'm going to say that you still came just a little bit long between the...
Yeah.
Like you'll notice he's got a peak just above his temple for his hair.
Mm-hmm.
And here, let me switch quickly. So he's got a peak right here, and then he's got a peak that kind of, it's like a negative shape in here. And that's a really good shape to kind of bear in mind when you're, just as a landmark. So you kind of lost that just a bit. And then it's a little bit far back from the ear toward the back of his head. But otherwise, the lighting on the face is looking really good. And got a lot out of that one. And we have a question from Puxy for $5. Thank you so much, Puxy. How do you manage multiple projects at any given time? You know, and oh, you know what? Here's another thing that I lost. I just want to quickly point out that you've got a real plane change here to here, and I think I lost this on both of mine, and I'm gonna go ahead and fix for that because I really like how that looked. So you can see the brow here, and then that kind of raises that cheek up there, and I think that looks really good. And I'm gonna try to remember that for the future. I really like how that looks. So that was something that I think kind of got a little lost in mine. Well, completely. All right. Yeah, multiple projects. I am a little obsessive. So my secret for finishing multiple projects is when I start a project, I work on it until it's finished. And by project, I mean a page. So if I have a cover that I'm doing, I will draw that cover and not answer emails until it's done. And which is a problem, right? Of not answering emails too much. And then I'll move on to the next one, and I work on that until it's done. I can't just do half a picture and then move on. I just can't do it. Okay, so we're gonna move on. And we've got a few pictures to choose from here. You can see there's a lot of really incredible stuff. I'm gonna go with something just a little bit bigger though. As much as I love all these figures, they're a little small. The page would be a little difficult for you guys to see. It's got a Green Lantern here. What do you think, Eric? What do you want to do next?
I was actually going to suggest the
Okay, let's do it.
yeah.
All right, this is probably gonna take just a little bit longer. Sorry, back it up. Okay. So make sure everything's visible here so you guys can see what I'm working from. And my basic figure, his shoulders are kind of here, his body comes out here. I'm just working with a really simple line just to kind of establish my proportions. Here's the side of his chest here. That would be the top, or basically the line for the cage, line for his chest. Got an arm kind of coming out this way. I don't draw this way if I'm just drawing. But if I'm looking at something like this, I find just working with these kinds of, okay, so maybe I should draw the way I actually draw instead of doing this. Sometimes I get too fancy and I think, oh, hey, maybe this will be helpful for me to show it this way, and I don't work that way at all. So, all right, let me get that arm in. And what I'm doing, I just want to get the generalized shape. You can see I've got a line here, and then it curves out here, and he has that a little bit, but I've over accentuated it, and that's my own bias, so I'm kind of trying to kill that back, because the whole idea for me right now is to kill my own biases as much as possible and not let it affect the art. It's going to, and I'm not going to be upset about that, but I don't want to just let it happen. And so the base of his neck is here, his head comes up just about here, and then his two major neck muscles are here, half of his neck is just about here, and then his head attaches to the top. So I want to put his ear here and attaches just above this muscle.
His right leg is going to kill me.
That's gonna be easy, trust me. Super easy. Barely any.
That's the angle I've definitely never drawn.
Okay, so there's basically my face here. My shoulder goes above the face here. It's an incredible hand.
We're insanely fast, David, for sure.
Oh, is this one taking you a little longer? Coming off the page.
Yeah, this one's going to take a bit longer.
But you've gotten pretty comfortable, all in all, with drawing head shapes. And it shows, that's something that would take me quite a bit longer before. And there's always...
Yeah, definitely a huge weakness that I know work on for sure.
Now, I hope that I haven't drawn him too tall, or too big on the page to fit his feet in.
That's what I did. I messed up there.
Oh, no. Well, let's see how it goes. Bottom of his ribcage is going to be here.
Yeah, this one's going to mix with foreshortening and
Okay.
all kinds of cool.
His his hand, his wrist here, the line for his knuckles is here. That comes out here, and then his fingers go here, and they kind of come together. So they don't just come out like they're not a block. They come together in that kind of a shape, and then it comes out here, and you can see he's got that bone on the outside of his wrist right there. Then the thumb is attached right in there. That is a really easy way to just kind of break that shape down. I'm gonna end up move my camera just a bit and move some paper down. I'm gonna end up having to work on a different piece of paper because I'm not gonna lose the lines. All right. So there's the line for my left leg. And again, I just want to get as much of that shape in as I can, ideally. And then the lower leg is going to come off like this, and you can see he's got a pose up just like this. You could actually draw this as a bit of a ball. The knee. So
Yeah, I was going to mention the ball trick that you use for the cat, especially on his right leg. Definitely comes in handy there.
Ankle here, I tend to like to draw a bit of a line like this, and then my foot projects out from under that. And his foot, something I think is really interesting the way he defined it, he's got a shape like this here, and then he's got the base of his foot kind of attaching below that, like this. And so I want to try it, see if that kind of a shape language works for me. All of my shape language comes from that kind of observation from other artists. I see, I really like how they define that line there, and I want to see if using that as a form shape works. And I think it did. So, all right, moving on. And so now my back leg, I'm going to start here, come down here. I'm going to draw my knee basically there, and then a ball here, and then my lower leg is going to come out of it like that. And then his shapes for his heel. Kind of cool. I'm not talking on the microphone, sorry. So there we go. That's my rough end. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw some proper details. Let me move this back up. I'll reline that up again. Hold on. All right. Chris Reader says, I'm watching but not following along. I just spent 45 minutes trying to get a barefoot sketch in correctly. Yeah, you know what? This is how you get quicker, though. It really is. K-Pack is a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. He says, can you do Olivia Coipel and Pepper Laraz? Pepper Laraz? And that artist I'm not familiar with, but certainly Olivia Coipel, and I think that would be actually a great one.
I think Pinterest did the House of Powers of X, House of X, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Escobar says, has a $5 super chat. He says, when you get a chance, you should look up the book Levius. The artist on that book is Harushia Nakata, and I think you'd like the storytelling. Yeah, I'll check it out. And Sheldon Martin, thank you so much. Has a $5 super chat. He says, Dave, when you said you struggled in your first work, but going through you said you struggled in your first work, but your second work looks beautiful. What were the struggles? Well, thank you. First of all, I had the advantage of working with some. Okay, there are a couple of things. Number one, the inkers at Top Cow were very effective at fixing artists that didn't know what they were doing. That helped. Second of all, I actually did quite a bit of work before they ever gave me the chance to do Cyclops Force, like my first issue of Cyclops Force. That was like a year in for me, so there's a lot of working through problems and study and that kind of thing going on. All right, so I'm going to block in his face quickly here. And also, a big problem for me, a big struggle, was that I didn't know this, probably what we're doing right now.
Is that what my problem is? That is what my problem is. Okay.
Because, and I tend to, for the lower face, I tend to like just draw a line down and then give it a bit of a bump out for the, I struggle. If I try to draw that mouth in there, I just get lost. To this day, I get lost. And so I just draw that overall shape.
There we go.
And then I can draw a line for the top lip. I can define it just like that. And then define the lower lip, bring it in. And it kind of works for me better than if I meditation for me. Now, I love how he does his hair. I would actually really like to. There are nuances. Like his ear here is great, and I'm actually going to look at it just a little bit closer because it's really well done. I think I'm bigger with my ear. But we don't have time for me to be sitting here trying to copy his hair, so I'm not going to do that. And unlike the painting stream, Eric, I do want to move on to a few different things. And it's very important to me to draw my own picture and then actually go back after the picture's drawn and try to pick up references here and there to make it better. I've already, and I hate to say this, but this is a different pose than I would normally do, and this is something that you'll find will happen. His neck is not connecting properly. In trying to draw that face, I didn't have it really blocked in right, and so now I'm having to adapt. So my neck's going to be just about here. I'm going to have to fix this a bit. So, and that's just going to happen. Especially when you have biases in your work, it's just bound to happen. Louis Julian Torellis has a $5 super chat. Thank you so much.
There we
Thank
go.
you for the reference on Michael Matesi. I managed to find one of his books, and it's super helpful for my poses. Yeah, absolutely. He's great. I'm glad that it was helpful for you. Thank you. One by VR. Good to see you, by the way. He has a $2 super chat that says, really glad you did the stream. Thanks, David. Yeah, well, my pleasure. I always have such a great time doing these ones. I love doing the streams with Meredith. They're a lot of fun, but I'm not learning anything. Whereas with this, I feel like I'm kind of learning right along with you guys. You know, hopefully along with you guys as much as possible, even if you can't keep up. Pause it, watch it later, or ignore me. And just, you don't have to follow along to this drawing, especially if Kevin Olin isn't the style that you want. This very same approach works for any artist that you like. And yeah, no one ever told me how useful this could be to learn, and especially to develop a style. I always thought, developing a style was just like I'm really kind of struggling with some of this detail in here. And
I can't tell you how nickname he hit his right foot.
What's that?
I can't tell you how nickname Kevin Nolan hit the right foot.
Let's see how you're just coming along. That's looking great. Look at that.
Yeah, definitely the profile here with the neck is throwing me off bad.
Yeah, I think you captured that really well. Better than me, actually, with that whole neck area and the way the head attaches. I struggled with that a lot, and I think mine's looking a little awkward. But, this is where, and I've done this before, where I've really struggled, and as a result, I've actually gone through and drawn the same pose a couple of times until it felt a little more natural. Robin Senpai has a $2 Euro super chat, €2 super chat. He says, do you know ZHC? I've talked to him, and so sort of, not well though. And he was very nice. All right. And so I tend to draw in this area a lot of muscle detail, and he's got it, losing it here, much more simplified. And so it's going to be interesting for me to kind of play with that, and maybe that'll kind of add a little nuance to my work, so I'm not always drawing such extreme musculature. And this is where, drawing different sorts of characters. For instance,
Alright, this isn't bad. This is a little dynamic. Took me a minute for the legs. I was trying to draw it more sideways and put a lot of twist into it, but I guess it wasn't going to work out that way.
Or the needs of your script is not always going to call for the kind of work that I do. I mean, there are certain sorts of stories that, let me, because his.
I wonder if Kevin Nolan was a bit inspired by Anna Davis at all.
So yeah, that's probably the most and the best I can do.
Shape theology. For example, the foot that you mentioned earlier.
Danny here, sorry, he has a $2 super chat. Says just saying hi, Richie. Oh man, this is why we need Meredith there. Great stream. Thank you so much. And Greg Al's here. Good to see you. He has a $2 super chat. He says this pose feels impossible. Yeah, I gotta admit, it's feeling impossible for me too. I'm kind of skipping right now just for a second because you were talking about his influences, and he actually has a section in here about some of his influences.
It shows how bad I am. I gotta look at all the pictures that I read the text. I should probably go through this.
Here we go. So his biggest influences are Neil Adams, Gil Kane. And you can really see a lot of the Gil Kane, especially with interest in Green Lantern. Archie comics, which I don't see as much, but I'm so disconnected from this kind of work that I just not as familiar. And Alan Weiss, an artist I'm actually not familiar with. I guess I should be. So, and I can really see a lot of his rendering style and some of his techniques and some of Kevin Nolan's early work. So, yeah, and like this kind of pose right here. Okay, right now I would struggle with that pose. You can really see the influence on what he's doing. And then there's some other ones: Alex Toth, Pierre, Bernie Wrightson, and Bob Oxner. So yeah, there you go. A lot of different influences, and he would have worked in a really similar way, picking up the techniques that they do. All right, moving on.
So you don't want to, light and shadow this one too?
Yeah, well, I'm struggling so much with the pose. I don't actually normally ever, as much as I look at Kevin Nolan, my influence of Kevin Nolan has always been lighting. It's never really been structure as much as it should be, and so I'm finding this to be a little bit unnatural for me. And so, which I think is great. I don't mean that as a criticism. Kevin Nolan, it's a learning experience for me. So his shoulder should be all the way up in his nose. I don't have it in his nose. I'm not going to try and fix for that now.
And yeah, I did the same thing.
Yeah, it's if I did this 5 times, I would start to be able to get a better sense of his. And actually, if you look at this, I feel like my whole arm looks like it's coming down too low, like it's coming out of here as opposed to where it should be, and that's a result of me not doing that properly. So I'm gonna fix it, and I will have it coming out of his nose the way he did it, and see if that fixes the problem.
What's challenging too is the anatomy on his leg is not how I draw leg anatomy.
Yeah, but you know what? That's how you really.
Yeah.
It can add so much nuance to the way that you work, and he's got so much work out there. Now something to bear in mind. His leg anatomy is actually a little odd because you have a muscle here.
Right.
So this shadow here, I don't get it. It really shouldn't be there. It doesn't matter, and this is where I don't claim when I'm drawing my shadowing on muscles, I'm not always 100% accurate to anatomical perfection underneath. It's not the point. So I don't mean that as a criticism, but I know that would be odd for me to do, and I wouldn't do it that way. So I would adapt that. For this case, I'm going to try and do it exactly how he did it, but it is strange for me to do. And this is where it's so important to have a good understanding from anatomy books of your basic anatomy, because then when you look at an artist, I can say, you know what, there should be a muscle there. I don't think that combination or that angle is the way that it should be, and so you can make your own choices and use what works and let it build on the knowledge that you have. Whereas if you don't know any of that stuff going in, you pick up all of an artist's mistakes, and things just end up being a little more disjointed and I'm just going to draw a circle here. All right. Tom McCarthy says, man, how does Kevin Nolan do this? You know what? The guy's a genius. That's how. This is the problem. He's just, he's like a step above. I think if I come up just a little bit further here to give myself a little more room for that stuff. He's got a very thin torso.
I like the angle change that he has from the kneecap to the shin and the calf on his left leg. It's really something I think will help with drawing an extended leg like that.
Yeah. And I really like he's got his hip defined along here, bit of a curve here, and then it connects there. Really like that. And just a nice shape overall to his leg. So he's got his knee defined this way, and if he's kind of rounding his line, his knee around just like that, so you can see his anatomy, his musculature is rounding around kind of a nice shape like that. I really like that.
Yeah. It's done very well.
And yeah, again, the idea is to pick up on that as much as you can. Okay, I'm gonna line this up with my foot that I had here. Get this into the picture.
Yeah, what I meant about the leg anatomy earlier is just trying to shade it this way is going to be a bit of a challenge, but
Yeah, there's a point where, in the interest of full disclosure, I need to admit that if I don't like how I like how he's done this, but it doesn't make sense to me for the way that my understanding of anatomy goes. So truthfully, I would change it. I wouldn't just copy it that way if it I don't think it works with my understanding, because I have an anatomical structure in mind. I mean, something I've been working on for years, and to just break that, I wouldn't, truthfully. So I think maybe I shouldn't now either, even though I think what he did looks great, and he's a better artist at anatomy than I am. I feel like I'm criticizing him, and I don't mean it that way. But that shape doesn't make sense to me, and I'm going to fix it for myself. Maybe you should
Yeah.
too.
I feel like the art is, I know with the leg muscle, and you and I have spoken about that a lot. Well, not the leg muscle, the leg in general, the way, just different approaches that people have.
Yeah.
And then, working to the outside of the leg is just, so many different ways that folks choose to draw that, and
All right.
a lot more ways, a lot more understanding than others, I guess.
I've got my figure basically blocked in. My proportions are not ideal. This happens to me a lot when I'm trying to draw this way. And actually, this happens to me. I can see this in comics that I've done where I'm looking at too much influence. I'm looking at that influence, and things get a little bit disjointed on the page. All right, so I'm going to move this over again. Make sure we're in here. And let's take a look at how Eric's coming along quickly again here. Way to go. Yeah, it's looking great. All right, we're moving away from Eric's feeding me right now.
It's so rough.
I think it looks great. Okay, so a few things I want to point out here. He has two light sources on this light. He's got his light coming from above, and that's his generalized light source, and then he's got a light coming from below. And he's not reflecting that on the light behind it, which is fine. I guess it could be just a bit of a light here. He's also not reflecting it here, but it could just be like a really small kind of a light source there. And he's doing it to separate this light from this light, so that's fine. He does have it kind of reflected here. He's got a bit of an underlight here, but it's not consistent because there's no underlighting here while there is here. For my part, if I'm going to underlight that there, I would definitely underlight that here. I couldn't leave it that way. And again, he knows what he's doing. It looks beautiful, but it's a different decision that I would personally make. Okay, so shadowed underneath his eye here. And this is obviously a much more complex drawing. I'm starting to regret doing this one because now I'm going to have to try and draw this on my own. So different than what I would normally do.
And reminds me a bit of the Frazetta stream we had with that,
that one.
the line through there.
Yeah, what a mess that was.
That was a tough one.
That was. You really left that ear alone. I am going to just block in quickly. Just some shadow the base of the hair here. Alright. It's gotten pretty thick with his line work on his mouth. That cuts down here. I feel like I've gone a little more squat with my face. So there's elements of that face that I definitely lost. But an overall figure, I mean, that's just going to happen. And this is why you really can't pick up everything from an artist in one drawing. You've been learning how to draw for so many years that it's going to be it's going to be an amalgam of what you do and what you're learning. All right. So an overall big blocked-in shape here is very different than what I would normally do, but I think it really works. It certainly doesn't contradict anything that I feel like I understand for myself. So I think that worked really well. I like it. I'm going to do that at some point. The shekel underneath his chest. And he's not really using shadow here, but just to make it, he's using rendering, but just to, just simple. Now, for my part, I'm telling you right now, since he's got underlighting going on all through here, I know I would, and so I'm going to give it a bit of a rim light there. Can't help it.
Hell yeah.
And I feel like there's no point, if I know
Yeah, these things don't look bad
this
at all,
is the way
man.
that I would work, then I'm just going to do it. This is a study for my own artwork. It's not really.
Exactly.
This isn't.
It's a study, not a copy.
But.
So I was surprised he was like trying to copy so much. It's like, oh, he, you know,
So,
I figured he would know to just kind of do his
he's
thing.
got a really large amount of space between his chest and his rib cage, and I lost that here. It's just so different than what I do, and I'm not going to worry about that. I'm gonna let that go. Lighting philosophy, as much as it's such an influential thing for me, is so different than mine in so many ways. Like that stomach, I think, really, really works, and it's very different than anything I would do. So, I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit to just see what I can pick up from it. Are you lighting it, Eric?
I'm struggling lighting it because yeah, with you, it's a little bit different. The approach.
Got a pretty good shadow under it. His chin, you can only just kind of block some of this in here.
Where we at? 90 minutes?
And you can really see how much I'm losing with this one versus the other one. It was it's a head. I tend to get a lot of my facial lighting from Kevin Nolan, whereas this is a little different than what I would normally pick up from him. So it's, I don't know, for some of you that are following along, if you're trying to draw this figure, you might be running into similar problems where it's very, very different. So I really like, he's got his bicep here, comes in, and then he just kind of.
All right, man. We're about 90 minutes into this one. And yeah, man, I'm pretty happy with this. 90 minutes, and I got 3 of these in. They're all the same look. Basically, I'm taking this portrait that I did of the man, and you know, obviously there's not much going on, but a jean jacket with a button up like neck collar. I wish I had done more, like really kind of made this neck collar a little more like fantastic, you know, instead of so plain. But either way, I you know, it works and it doesn't look bad by any means. So, like, I'll live with it. But yeah, I just took this one. So I didn't work on this one at all. That'll be on the next stream that I'm going to be doing a little bit later on tonight. I'm just going to take a break. Probably do a little bit of yoga, honestly. Today's been a weird day, so I was like, you know what? I need to work on some yoga. And but yeah, just took that portrait, and all I had to work with was, you know, his face here, his face, you know what I mean? Just work on these areas as far as like the reference that I'm pulling from, and everything else is made up Like he's not wearing his visor on this one, and yeah, neither on this one either. So I wonder if I should kind of at least give his face a little more of the proper shape. Hmm. How would his face be shaped at this point? There we go. That's what I needed. There we go. That's a little more proper. But yeah, so I got him holding his visor here, visor off on this one. But yeah, pretty much has his visor on all times. Makes, again, so he looks normal, because obviously he's a Cyclops, and you know, Cyclops may or may not be a thing that people like in this world that I'm making. But yeah, 90 minutes, man. I X'd out what, 6 of these? So they're what, 15 minutes a pop? It's not bad. These are like little fun sketches. And yeah, man, see me working and expanding on all of these. Like I said, I love everything that's been done so far. All this is just building more into the world. These are very reminiscent of the sketches that I did while I was doing my writing, as I wrote for 5 years and took all the time off. And let me do this. You know, when I took all that time off to write, I did some sketches, and you know, those you could probably find some of them on my website. A lot of them are blurred out just because I don't want to give away the actual content of it. But a lot of it's organized, and yeah, what I did was all of this, but it was less rendered out. Like you see how I'm actually able to kind of render them, give them poses, give it a little bit of uh, you know, get a little more in depth. A lot of them were just kind of like shapes and silhouettes and basic items and things that I needed or wanted for this character. And you know, it was just really rough idea. It was kind of like looking at something with a blurry lens, where this stuff is very, you know, rendered and you know, hopefully at the very least you can see and look at it and be like, oh, you know what, I could see this as, I could see this character, like I could see, you know, something that I talk about all the time as well is like watching these shows. I really hate that a character wears the same outfit day after day unless it's actually a part of their character to be wearing the same outfit, but there should be something said about that, you know. And if there isn't, I'm like, well, what world are we living in? Are you, not that you can't wear the same thing every day without being a filthy pig, but that's usually the case. If you're wearing the same exact clothing for possibly years on end, you know what I mean? It's like, man, just switch up the outfit from time to time. One of my favorite animated movies is Tekken Kinkreet, and it was because you have these main characters, black and white, and they're always changing. Even all the other characters, side characters, the gangsters and all that shit, like they're, you know, they're wearing business suits every day, but the color of the suit changes. You know what I mean? And it just lets you into the world of like, you know, this is a new day. They had to have gotten changed. Which suggests that they showered, which suggests that there are bathrooms in this world, which suggests, you know, that these people are living and that there is a cleanliness and a social structure to it all, where, you know, people wear the same exact clothes every single day. Not one character ever changes and no one ever says anything. And, you know, maybe they change if it's like, oh, we have the underwater episode, so now they magically have a scuba suit. And it's like, I get it, but, you know, so that's another reason why all these outfits or whatever you want to call it, like the changing in clothes or taking the same clothing item and just giving a little bit of different angles to it, and different styles and different takes on similar items. Just, if he put this on and then went about his day, and, who knows, maybe the day got hotter or something like that. So you had this change. Maybe he's in this part of the world or that part of the world where the temperature is a little bit different. Like, um, all of that. So uh, that's why I'm working on all this. And, these sketches are definitely a lot more in depth than what I was working on in the past when I was just coming up with these concepts. So everything definitely is coming together, and it is working out for the better. Um, like I said, I'll be back later on tonight to start tackling this one, and obviously I'm finished with this page, so I'll start a new page, and no worries, I still have the water samurai that I'm working on here. Haven't touched them since I ended the last stream, so I'll be starting a new page and throwing in those next renders, pop, 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 all in here. With that said, I just want to thank anybody and everybody who's watching these things. Again, I'm Mr. Drew. You're watching the Andrew Glowczewski Experience. This has been episode 196, working on these character concepts. And yeah, man, I'm Mr. Drew on all socials. You can follow, like, and subscribe. Any and all support is appreciated. If you want to hit me up, you want to talk. Like, I love talking about these things. I'm very quiet during these streams, and I always put something on in the background just because, I'm alone here. So lonely. and uh and but if you're catching these on YouTube, you can catch me live on Twitch, and even if you don't want to have a Twitch account, you can watch these things on Patreon. Most of the videos you'll have to be actual patron to view them, which tiers start at $1 for regular, just old support, and then going up from there, going anywhere from $3 to $30 a month, depending on what you want. You get commissions and from me, character commissions, character portraits, kind of anything that you want, and it's all dictated on like square inch, as far as like the size of the drawing that you get depending on the tier. And all those details are on my Patreon. So check out Mr. Drew on Patreon. Or, even if you don't want to do that and you just want to hire me flat out on Fiverr to do some commission work for you, Mr. Drew on Fiverr, man. Other than that, you can see me on Instagram posting every single day, Twitter sharing things all the time. And yeah, that's going to be it, man. I want to thank everyone for watching. Love you. Peace.